Welcome to Sisters in Song. Can you take a minute to tell us who you are and where you're coming to us from tonight?
My name is Avery Hellman. I play under the name Ismay, and I'm coming to you from Northern California, Sierra Nevada mountains.
Ooh,
Nice.
I bet that's beautiful.
Oh yeah, it ain't too shabby, I gotta say.
Yay. And what is, always have to ask, 'cause I'm curious, what is the weather like there right now?
Well, it changes a lot around here. We're at high elevation, so could be cold or hot, but it's been pretty warm. But the cool thing about here is you get to see the mountains and snow-capped peaks, and it ain't too shabby. Like I said, it's a good place to live.
Yay.
Love it.
I love
Love it.
it.
We've been lucky this week too. Today it's about 77 and sunny. So
Yep.
we're in Omaha, Nebraska, and
Oh,
we
not
get some ugly
dissimilar.
weather here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be 90 on Friday, so
Yeah,
I'm enjoying it while we can.
much
And then
too early.
it'll go back. Who knows? But well, we'll
Nice.
get started talking to you about music.
Yes.
How did you get started in the career of music? We know you have an interesting backstory, so we're excited to hear you tell it.
Yeah, well, I got my start. I was sort of interested in a lot of things, as most teenagers are, not sure what to do. And I had been pursuing being in sort of the environmental field, I guess. But when I was growing up, I had this other kind of part of my family that I was not really a participant in. My grandfather had started a bluegrass festival, and I always watched from afar. So I got to see it, but I never was really a participant in that. I didn't grow up playing in bands or anything like that. And then when I was 19 years old, all of that changed because my grandfather passed away. He had a really wonderful long life, and the legacy that he left behind was this festival and a band that he started, a bluegrass band, and he had started all this in the like final chapter of his life, like the last 15 years of his life, all of this came to fruition, which was cool, and he left it behind for us. So that's how I got started.
Very cool.
Wow.
Now we know you have some ranching background. Tell us about that.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued.
Yeah, well, I grew up riding horses. I rode since I was 4. I did like competitive horseback riding, which most people don't want to hear about. It's pretty boring, but not a cool origin story. But the love of horses was a wonderful thing. Getting to spend my time. I even went to a high school where I got to have my own horse at school and take
Oh,
care of my horse, which was a cool thing. But then when I was in getting interested in what my career was going to be, I was into environmental science, and there's this sort of niche field in environmental science that's rangeland management, it's called. And it was really exploding at the time. Yeah, it's a very interesting niche. It's like we've got our own subculture of sustainable ranching, and I was really interested in it. It was compelling to me. And so I spent about 10 years working on my family's ranch, learning about that it's not a pastime, vocation. And I don't really do it much anymore. I think I know a little bit, and maybe I'll get back to it one day. Who knows?
okay. How did that segue into music?
So, there's a really interesting path between ranching and music. There's obviously our folk music traditions that we have from the United States, from Appalachia. We have so many interesting traditions, but one of the more, I would say, niche and small traditions we have is cowboy music, cowboy poetry. And so when I was kind of figuring out what I was wanting to do with my life. Like I said, I was getting into music, I was getting into ranching. I had these two forks that I was kind of straddling. I happened to be driving across the country by myself before Google Maps was so useful. I'll know, which I'm happy of. I honestly think it was good for us. But anyways, it was kind of before we had all these smartphones to figure everything out. And I just pulled up to this town of Elko one day and I was like, oh, Western Folklife Center. That sounds interesting. I'm interested in folk life. And I encountered this museum and this institution that was all about celebrating the folk culture of rural ranching people. And I think that just really made me interested in trying to create songs, writing original music that was tied to this, I don't know, lifestyle, vocation, whatever you want to call it.
Love it. And
Uh,
so that informs the new album, which is the next
yeah.
question. Tell us about the new album.
So I have made a number of albums, kind of, been around the block, so to speak. I've been putting out records for about 10 years now. And I was working on a new record. The previous record I had done was called Desert Pavement, and it was very much more literally about living on the farm. And the one before that was called Songs of Sonoma Mountain. So there were really albums that were derived from this experience I had living on my family's ranch and living with the animals and having more friends that were horses and cows than people. And then, which is kind of silly, but and then I had a transition where I moved away from the ranch. I kind of started to forge my own path. And at the same time, I was also working on a documentary project about Lucinda Williams. And I had learned about the importance of, having a sort of like a regional writing background, which I felt that I had, but also the influence of poetry on songwriting. And I got really interested in becoming a better songwriter and writing from this place of a poetic I guess. And that's really what informed the album for me.
Awesome. I also adore horses, so I totally get it. And pretty much any animals. Yeah.
Me too.
Tell us how you see a song from start to finish. What is your writing process?
Especially with looking at it through the poetic eye.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that when you introduce poetry, it does change the process. It used to be that I would write usually a melody and then come up with some words. I would have some kind of concept written up in my journal, and I would try to pair the concept with the melody and vibe it out, and keep working on the song. But what I really wanted to do with writing and learning how to write better poetry was to kind of break down the walls of like the limitations that we have as songwriters. Most of the time you have to rhyme, it has to sound right. You're careful about using certain words, and especially if you come from folk Americana music, you have a certain language. Like certain words are just weird to say. Like you don't really say like computer, or you don't say email, There's certain things that there's a aesthetic choices, right?
Yeah.
And so I had that background, but I guess what I'm saying is that when I started doing poetry, the great thing about writing a poem is none of those rules apply. Poetry is a very open-ended art form. Any good poetry teacher will not tell you that there are rules that have to be followed. Even line breaks isn't a rule. And so what I was able to do is write a number of poems that allowed me to break out of this, cage that's kind of forced upon a songwriter and explore new ideas and become a better writer. And so instead of starting with exclusively with a melody and an idea, all of a sudden my songwriting process, I could start with a poem that I had written and I had broken all the songwriting rules, and then I can reel it back in, and write something that works for a song.
And that's an awesome perspective.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Do you find yourself now like writing more poetry than you ever did before? Like, do you start always that way, or do you feel like you kind of work on the song sometimes on the poetry, and then kind of meld them together?
That's a great question. So, interestingly, because of being able to write a few poems and no longer just being limited to being a songwriter, I actually become interested in trying to write other things like essays or stories. I'm not saying I'm any good at it or that I've tried all that hard, but that's kind of where my heart is, like even the thing about poetry and songwriting is they're wonderful art forms, but they're also so limiting because you can't tell a whole, well, you can kind of tell a whole story, but there's a lot more you can say if you write a story. So I've become interested in those art forms too. But I would say what's actually interested me recently, and it's probably because I just keep changing my strategy of writing to keep it interesting, but I've been more interested in rewriting folk songs with piecing together the older lyrics because I think before, when you're starting out as a songwriter, you guys know, the hardest thing to write is a simple song with straightforward words.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing to do is write like a basic folk song or a basic love poem or something like that. That's always the most challenging for most people. But now that I've written so many songs and made albums, I feel more comfortable going back and appreciating the simpler folk words and seeing the beauty and what I can carve out with those now that I have the confidence of knowing I can write like a weird original sounding song.
How do you set those to music? And what
So,
instruments do you play? I always have to ask that.
yeah, I mostly play guitar. I started kind of with bluegrass and it was really into fingerstyle guitar. And the kind of the with folk songs, that's a good question. Um, you can kind of, sorry, that squeak is my chair. I'm not sure if you guys heard that. Um,
No,
with
you're good.
okay, good, good. The folk songs, so what I've been doing recently, and I'm getting deep into the craft part because I know that's what you guys are really into, is folk songs are not written by one person, sort of like real folk songs, and they're written by a culture in a way and changed over time. And the melodies aren't, you can stick to them, but you don't have to. And this is the biggest thing that happened for me in the last couple of years with folk music is like, I was like, I feel weird taking Bob Dylan's version of like a folk song and then trying to reinterpret it. It just didn't feel right to me. Like it felt like wrong and like I wasn't gonna, there's nothing interesting about that in terms of my creativity. But now that I can see and appreciate the simplicity of the folk songs and go back and modify them in my way instead of modifying them in somebody else's way, I think that I can really, what I'd really like to do is pull little snippets of melodies and little snippets of words that I like, almost collaging things together.
That's a great way
It
to
is.
explain it.
Yeah.
It makes it like almost like a puzzle that you put
Mhm.
together. I love
Mhm.
that. And I get what you're saying about not wanting to take like how Bob Dylan did it. 'Cause
Yeah.
it almost feels like stealing from him, you
Yeah.
know?
Instead of a reinterpretation.
Yeah,
Which
making
is,
it your own.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that.
me too.
Okay, so now we know you have this amazing album coming out. What's next on the horizon? Are you touring with the album or planning anything that way?
Yeah. So, I did this big tour with Finding Lucinda, the documentary, and the podcast. And that was the first time I ever did like a national tour, like headlining, quote unquote. I mean, that's such a weird word, but I got to put on my own shows and I learned so much and I had a very informative, challenging experience. And I was ready to approach putting out this album, Half Truth, with like, I'm going to do it my way. I don't have anything to prove. I want to do a better job at the individual performances that I'm doing. And so I've been doing fewer, but I have been touring and I have been making videos of the songs. And also, I think the most exciting show is going to be I've been putting on this music festival where I live. It's a very small little kind of community folk festival. And we're going to be performing Half Truth, the album, at the music festival. And it's going to be the date of the week of the release. And so I see that as like my community. I think a lot of artists, you kind of feel like the most important step when you put out a project is like share it with your real community and know that that's sort of the most substantive, deep, show you get to do for the most part. So that's what I'm going to do in June, and that should be, I don't know, fun.
That's right around the corner.
Yes, and tell us the name of the festival.
It's called Woollystar. It has two O's and two L's, and it's named after a flower.
Oh, cool. Now, is this the festival that your grandfather started, or is it something totally different?
It's totally different. Basically, because of my grandpa, my family's business, he was an investment banker, but he got into music later in life and then kind of made the family business. Instead of all of his grandchildren becoming investment bankers, they all became artists and musicians and starting their own
Awesome.
music festivals. So now music festivals are kind of the family business. And so I had put on some events. I've learned so much about producing events. And it's something I'm interested almost more as like, a craft. It's sort of funny. It's putting on events is such an art. It's such a craft, I would say. And I'm always fascinated with all the moving pieces of why events do or don't work. And so, that family business just inspired me to start my own event. And I also think giving other people the opportunity to share their work. There's so many great artists out there. And audiences that need high quality work. And it's just cool to get to, I don't know, present something and I do it exactly the way I want to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's
That's great.
fantastic.
That is.
Absolutely. We in the audience definitely need it right
Yep.
now.
Yep.
What usually sparks a new song for you? Do you find yourself like, using nature, or I know we talked about the ranch for a little
Yeah.
bit, but what other things inspire you?
I think to me, I recently was in a writing class and I was asking the teacher, I said, what do you like? How do you get yourself interested in writing? Like, once you've been writing for a long time, sometimes you just get a mental block or you just aren't inspired because you kind of squeezed all the juice out of the lemon, it seems. But what she said, which was so helpful, is she was like, what makes me want to write is reading something really good. So
Mm.
to me, reading is an inspiring way to think about writing. I love reading and I've done it a lot more recently. And I think I am trying to be like in a mode right now where because I've worked on this album, Half Truth, and I felt really good about the what I put into it, trying to just like let go and let it come when it comes. Because I think like, our writing voices, it's so important to work hard at it. And there's some people who can't even get one song out, and I would tell them, write more songs. But for those of us that have written song after song after song, I think sometimes letting yourself breathe and letting you remember who you are and find your interests in these weird little corners of the world can help us become more ourselves as writers and not having to do it all the time. When I started out, it used to be like I was so bursting at the seams with a need to be heard, that
Yep.
like I was writing all the time. And now I feel a little bit more like waiting to hear what the next thing I have to say is. I'm okay with that for now.
Yeah. That brings me to the question, how would you say your music has evolved since you started?
Hmm. When I started out, I always felt like I don't care about being really good at the start. That's not my goal. My goal isn't to prove to everybody that I'm so talented, I don't need to try. My goal was always, I want to always keep getting better. And better is a weird word, but I wanted to become a better songwriter always and not let my ego get in the way of doing that and not trying to go out and prove something. And so I think that my writing over the years has gotten probably riskier. It's gotten more honest for sure. It's gotten more honest with the side of myself that probably people who talk to me wouldn't know is there. So right? It's like I think when we write, oftentimes we get an opportunity to share that voice that we have that we otherwise can't figure out how to say what we want to say.
Yeah.
And so I think I've gotten better at that. And I think, yeah, I think taking risks is really important because it allows you to see what is possible, who you are as a writer and who you aren't. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
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 Well, you mentioned taking some classes in, writing and things like that. Did you go to school for music? Did you take classes in like learning to play and writing songs and singing and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I was really lucky when I was growing up. I went to an awesome school where everybody was encouraged to play music. I was really lucky to have really great music programs. Um, and then over time, I was sort of one of those musicians that was like, oh, I didn't exactly get the part in the musical, that kind of thing. Like it wasn't like people liked what I did, but it was never like, oh, you're destined for something. I don't know. Um, so I think that over time, I think that I don't think I'm answering your question. I'm kind of going off on another thought. I'm sorry. Um, but I think over time, I think allowing things to develop over time, musically speaking, in terms of playing instruments has allowed me to find the pieces of it that I like. And like I said, I'm the type of personality where it takes me a while to get in touch like, oh wait, that is what I think or oh, that is how I feel because, a lot of us are worried about making other people happy or not upsetting other people
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
It's a good quality to have, but it also makes it just you have to sit a lot longer to find your own voice, to find your own interests. And that's just taken me a while to find and sort out. I don't know if I answered your question. You can ask it again.
You did.
I think you did. Yeah. And
you said how you kind of
that
took
makes
classes and things.
so
Yeah.
much sense too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Should we do our rapid fire?
We should.
All right.
Are you ready for this?
Oh, yeah.
It's not hard.
All right. Coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee all day.
Vinyl, cassette, CD, or streaming?
Vinyl.
First album you ever bought?
Brandy. It was a CD at Tower Records, and I can't remember what the title was.
I love it. Do you have a go-to karaoke song?
So I was on a TV show a couple years ago, and they asked me for a karaoke song, and I never got to sing it. But the song was going to be Dancing Queen.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Do you like writing songs in the morning or in the evening?
I would say morning.
Yeah. Do you write lyrics on paper, phone notes, or voice memos?
Not voice memos, sorry. Phone notes and paper.
Do you
We got really blurry there for
let's see. Oh yeah, I lost track of where we were too. Do you have a pre-show pump-up song?
My pre-show, I don't have a pre-show pump-up song, but I do usually eat a lot of food.
So you're not one of those people who gets nervous beforehand and can't eat anything. You eat because you're nervous.
I eat because I'm nervous. When I'm at a party and I'm really worried about people will think of me, I just go nuts on the snack section. It's not always good.
I just find their pets.
Nice.
Oh, speaking of pets, dogs, cats, fish, or birds?
Or
I
reptiles.
love my dog so much, but I did see a bird in the pet store the other day and it was just so beautiful. I wish I could have a bird.
Do you still have horses?
I do have one horse, yes.
Yay.
I
Okay.
do love horses. Oh, okay. Describe your sound in 3 words.
Contemplative. Ethereal, that's what other people tell me. And narrative.
Ooh, I
Very
like
nice.
that. Okay, what advice would you give to other or new singers, not singers, songwriters or musicians?
I would say do everything you can to make the process as fun and enjoyable as it can be. Don't worry so much about the outcomes. Getting the feedback that you're amazing will never compensate for an inner sense of peace and will never be better than enjoying doing it for yourself.
I love that.
Me too.
Perfect.
It's time for your shameless plug. Where can we find your music? Where can we find your social media, your if you have Bandcamp or Patreon or website, any of that kind of stuff?
So the best way to find things is to just go to ismaymusic.com. Ismay is spelled Ismay. And the other place to go to find out about buying albums and what I'm up to, I've started a new record label project with my friend Margo Cilker, and it's called Fossil Records. So we're both putting our albums out as well as Kevin Carducci and Forrest Van Tile. So if you go to fossilrecordsco.com, that's a great thing to do, and just check out what we're up to.
I love that.
Me too. Thank you so very
Yes.
much for joining us
This has been
tonight.
so fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love how grounded you are
Yeah.
and how
I thought the same thing.
Yeah,
I just felt comfortable.
yeah,
Oh,
very
good.
Station.
Good.
Yeah.
It was really fun talking to you guys.